The presenting sponsor of Rates and Barrels is Topps.com and Topps Project 70. Topps is celebrating the 70th anniversary of its very first baseball card design with a new program that pushes boundaries while paying homage to the company's heritage. Project 70 has brought together creators of all kinds for this extraordinary set. Graphic designers, tattoo and graffiti artists, animators, illustrators, painters, and even a jeweler make up the artist roster, which includes names like Snoop Dogg, Action Bronson, Ben Baller, Jeff Staple, Tyson Beck, Alex Pardee, and more. Each artist will select their own MLB players and Topps designs from any year to craft a unique story. Ever wanted to know what Chris Bryant would look like in a Giants uniform and in a 1977 Topps design? Or how about Mookie Betts and another classic template from the 1970s? Now you can. 3 new cards launch daily all year long on Topps.com and are only available for 70 hours before they're gone for good. And while you're there, be on the lookout for special cards. Head to Topps.com to learn more about Project 70 and to check out which cards are live right now. Welcome to Rates and Barrels, presented by Topps. Check out Topps Project 70, celebrating 70 years of Topps baseball cards. Derek Van Riper, Britt DVR, Eno Saris here with you on this Friday. At least this podcast is for Friday, even if you're listening to it late on Thursday night. On this episode, we're going to discuss the things that are currently bringing us joy in baseball, because those things still exist, and we will talk about them, even though there are things that bring us anger and frustration and sadness.
Even though we are curmudgeons.
We will bring joy. We will talk about the things that make us happy, because there are things that make us happy, even though there are times when people say, do you guys even like this? It's like, well, we love this. That's why we get so angry about things that are bothering us. So we're going to dig into all the things that bring us joy. We'll talk about the Field of Dreams game and some of the related stories to that. So lots of ground to cover on this episode. And good to have the whole gang back together again, since everything was a mess with me moving and being gone last week and the trade deadline. We've had a chance to actually take in a couple of weeks of games since teams made moves, and we're getting some stratification, I think is the correct word, in the standings. There aren't as many battles division to division as we would expect. There are, I would say, 4 that are still actually up for grabs. Both of the East still up for grabs, both of the West. But the Centrals are pretty close to decided at this point, with the leads that the White Sox and Brewers currently hold over Cleveland and Cincinnati, respectively. So it's an open-ended question to start today. As you look around the league, you got a whole wide open canvas of everything going on in baseball right now, Britt, and you can look at any level. Doesn't have to be the big league level. What brings you joy right now?
Oh, boy. So many things. The Field of Dreams game brings me joy, though I think that movie is highly overrated. I think it's fun. And it's fun that we're going to have big league players playing among cornfields. Fernando Tatis not being out for the season. If he does, in fact, come back and they do put him in the outfield, that brings me joy. The fact that we are almost in September, which is when it really gets to be exciting. To me, that's almost when the pre-playoffs start, right? Every game becomes a must-watch for a lot of these races. So, you know, I appreciate the people on iTunes who leave us reviews like, does Brittany even like baseball? But I do like baseball. I do enjoy watching baseball.
In your defense, I mean, like some of the work of journalism is to like delve into these topics that nobody really wants to delve into. I mean, right? Like you gotta like you're fielding calls about a certain situation in LA that's just, you know, it's not fun. You know, right? Like it's not, that's not great, you know. And so we've had to write about injuries with the ball and perhaps mismanagement by the league and stuff. So like, I mean, part of our job is to kind of poke at those things and figure them out. But you're right. I mean, it is going to be a great time. And I think I have a fun story coming up on next week about fan interaction. That should be fun. I got a lot of joy out of it, actually, talking to players about talking to fans in the outfield. So I hope there's enough little nuggets in there that people will laugh. It's not my typical story, but I'm also out here watching these geriatric giants every day. And they bring me joy because I am old myself. And so I enjoy seeing Posey go hit tanks to dead center. He looks rejuvenated. Brandon Crawford, I mean, like one of the best seasons of his life, and Brandon Belt is swinging it well too. I mean, what year is this? So I kind of like that. Like to stop the juggernaut Dodgers, it's going to take like the 2010 Giants core, like what?
Yeah. Not the script that any of us would have wrote back in the spring.
Yeah. And then there's always like when you're kind of covering baseball from a national standpoint, it's not easy to have like unfiltered joy, because there's always sadness with joy, like when you're covering from the top. And here's my explanation. The NL East. Like there's going to be sadness for two teams. Like I think it's only going to produce one team for the playoffs. And there's always like the LOL Mets crew that, I used to write for Amazing Avenue. I lived in New York for 10 years. Like I've been a Mets fan. And so I feel that like sense of impending doom that like a lot of Mets fans might feel right now. But they're the best team on paper. And then you've got the basically a three-way tie right now with the Phillies and Braves. That's super exciting. So from like a sort of baseball national level, that's super fun. Within it, though, there's going to be some sadness.
Yeah, a lot hinges on Jacob deGrom as pertains to the Mets. Probably more than you would think for just one pitcher. And I think it's the potential for things to snowball. It is the potential for the LOL Mets mindset to creep back in, right? If you get bad news on deGrom, it's not just the fan base, it's players that have been around this organization. I know they've had a lot of turnover, but it's still sort of the, here we go again. Like this could have been our year. This looked like it was going to be our year. We were spending money. We brought in a lot of talent. We made the trade for Lindor. We made trades at the deadline to add Javier Baez. Like we're doing all the things we possibly can to win right now. And now we're going to be fighting to the very last day of the season to make the playoffs. I mean, I do agree with what you said. I think the Mets are the best team on paper of the three teams still in the mix in the NL East. Do you agree with that assessment, Britt, or do you actually see more? It's not in Philly. I know it's not Philly. I can pre-rank Britt's three teams in the NL East.
But all of our crap talking, Philly's going to win it.
Maybe. But if I were ranking just through the lens that Britt is ranking them, I know the Phillies are third. I don't know who she has first and second though in the division.
Yeah, I'm going to say the Mets. Here's my issue: is the Mets are the best team, and I don't think that's debatable. But they haven't performed. They've underperformed all year. So could Atlanta sneak in there? Absolutely. But did you guys know that the Mets are on pace for some crazy historical records? They have 11 sacrifice flies all year. Like what? How? You look at that lineup offensively, and every single player pretty much has underperformed.
Yeah.
They don't have an offensive WAR over 2. How? It honestly, so like, do I think they're the best team? Yes. On paper, I think they're the best team. Atlanta's had just too many injuries to really top them. If the Braves were healthy, I think they'd be running away with this division again. I think it wouldn't even be a question. It would be like their 4th in a row in the NL East. But when you look at it, I think despite all the Mets injuries, they're still the best team. They just need guys to step up. They can't have Jonathan VR and Kevin Pillar be everyday players. That is just not how this team functions. Michael Conforto, like it's August. It's time to wake up. Like Dom Smith, time to be better than you are. I think when you look at this lineup up and down, and people have pointed to the pitching, and yes, DeGrom being out is huge. But to me, all year, people keep saying this lineup's going to hit. This lineup's going to hit. Well, guess what? The lineup didn't hit. The lineup hasn't hit. And I think it's fair to wonder this winter, what will Steve Cohen do? Because to me, this is on the front office. It's not on the manager. They didn't go out and get JT Realmuto, which would have been excellent. They didn't get George Springer. They didn't really get that big bat. And do you guys remember when Steve Cohen was like, we're going to be a destination for free agents? And they didn't sign any free agents. They got Lindor via trade. So they haven't really done what we thought they were going to do. And I know I'm getting way off topic here with the Mets. I probably talk about the Mets too much because I go on SNY, and I feel like, if you're a Mets fan, you've been in that like, oh, woe is me for at least a month here. But I think if the Mets get past this little this little stretch here where they play Dodgers Giants, if they get past that and they're not totally obliterated, they have a chance.
Because then they get people back, then hopefully, some of those bats get right.
Back maybe. Yeah. Like I just feel like they're still the best team. As unfortunate and ridiculous as that sounds because they haven't played well all year, I don't know how you can make the argument that Atlanta or Philly are a better team, especially if the Mets get back Lindor and they get back to Baez play yet day. I knew he wasn't starting, so I'm not certain if he's actually available or not. If they get back to Grom, obviously that's a division race changer right there.
Yeah, there's some dysfunction in New York that's still simmering under the surface. I've heard some grumbling about the fact that Sandy Alderson's kid was promoted. There's some people in the organization not super happy about that. Then you have Zach Scott, the GM, going out there right now saying that players are not following their sort of injury protocol or whatever. And I forget who I saw somebody on Twitter do this. I'm stealing the joke, but maybe you can forgive the players for not following the Mets injury protocols because the Mets injury protocols have not necessarily worked out well in the past. I mean, there's a dude out here, Jed Lowry, who is like, I followed the Mets protocols and it did not work. So, it was interesting to see Marcus Stroman like super dehydrated today, but he got it through there. And they did what they had to do. But like, I look at Baez and I see like an oblique injury, but they keep talking about a hip and a back. I mean, he looked really uncomfortable on that swing. I could see him ending up on the IL. That's the LOL Mets in me. But there's so much talent there. The one thing I will say is when you build a team like this, where you build it with veterans, this is what happens. And you need to have really good depth. So I do think VR and Pilar are good depth, but you don't really want Luis Guillorme starting at shortstop very long. And that's been a bit of a problem for them.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. But Lindor tracking back toward a return, I think we could also see a much better version of Lindor once he comes back than what we saw prior to the injury. I mean, Lindor hitting 228, 326, 376 on August 12th. I never would have predicted that. And if someone said, well, that's going to happen, I would have said, oh, he's only played like 20 games then. He had 20 bad games and he got hurt. He's played 88 games. So he's had some chances to turn it around, hasn't done it yet. Brandon
there were some
Nimmo,
glimmers before he got hurt.
There were some signs. Brandon Nimmo, on a per game or per plate appearance basis, is a good offensive player, probably an underrated one in a lot of circles. Jeff McNeil probably won't ever be the guy we saw a couple years ago over a full season again. He's a good player. Like you can talk yourself into this lineup, and I think the thing that the Mets have compared to the other teams battling it out in this division right now, I like the back end pitching for the Mets just as much as I like anybody else's, right? The Phillies really tapers off after, I would say, their first three when Eflin's healthy, maybe the first two without him, depending on how you feel about Kyle Gibson. I think Atlanta is comparable. I think the key for Atlanta is the health of Ian Anderson and Huascar Ynoa, because if both of those guys are healthy and effective, you're not relying on Drew Smyly for a lot of high-quality innings, right? You're kind of moving him down in the pecking order, and you're getting guys that are closer to what you had in that rotation last year, right? So for as much as gone wrong for both the Mets and the Braves, it's pretty amazing that they're still right here on equal footing with each other and that the Phillies haven't been able to do enough to open up a lead on them.
Yeah. It's almost like a prize fighter's taking a few punches, and you're wondering, is he, are there a few more punches and then he's down, or is this when he kind of like rallies and gets back? So, Tyler Mayfield has been good, but the last two starts have not. So, if he's going to falter, you really would love to be like, oh, right as he's faltering, swap for DeGrom. That'd be a really nice swap to make, While
we're talking about joy, though, what's great, as mentioned, is I don't see any of these teams breaking away, right? We're in for a race, maybe down the stretch, maybe down to the last day. And that's exciting, as long as you're not a fan of any of those teams, in which case you may be
Well,
physically
even if you
ill.
are. Yeah.
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 Like watching those kind of games as a fan is just the worst. Like the range of emotions, it's so stressful. When you're neutral and you're a reporter and you don't really care who wins, it's much different, right? Than sitting there yelling at the TV. Yeah. Exactly. But it should be good. It should be really fun because there's not going to be that many races that you can count on. And I think we'd all be shocked on this podcast, right? If someone went on a run and all of a sudden was 10 games up in the division.
Yeah, I don't see that coming out of the NL East. I would say the AL East will also be a fun race, but I think the thing that makes the AL East maybe a little more compelling is that you can get multiple teams in, whereas the NL East, probably only the division winner gets in because of the way the NL West is played, and even if things were to get closer, the Reds have a better record than those NL East teams. They would be ahead of all of those teams for a wild card berth. You look at the Rays, the Red Sox, the Jays, and the Yankees, there's a very good chance that at least one team that doesn't win the division gets in. A lot hinges on how well Oakland plays. My argument here, though, is that because the Angels have not delivered on expectations, they traded some players away at the deadline, Rendon's out for the year, they're not going to make a run at this point. They've faded. The Mariners, I think we're just waiting for the fade to come. I think Oakland's path to at least get to the wild card and possibly keep putting pressure on the Astros makes things interesting in the AL, because then still only have one of those AL East teams likely to get in that doesn't win the division. So there's a lot of pressure on the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Jays, and the Rays. And I think it's going to make that race just as fun, if not more fun, than the NL East one, even though two of those teams will probably get in.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird where you have this like, well, we didn't get the division, we get in, you know. But the second wild card race, in or not, I think could be big because you see some teams there. I don't know if this describes Oakland, but the Yankees and Blue Jays, if they get in, I think they're pretty dangerous because then you've got they may not have the best fourth or fifth starters. But if you're talking about their first two starters and you're talking about like a 5-game series or shortening it, Barrios and Ryu, like Cole and Tyon or Kluber, maybe, I would take those guys over, I think, Manaea and Bassett. So, you're talking about teams that would get better in shorter series. So that whole like toggle between in or not is kind of exciting. So I think second wild card is right there with the AL. Second wild card is right there with the NL East.
Yeah, I agree.
In the NL West, it's like it's like a pecking order thing. They're all three are probably in, unless the Padres just really poop the bed.
Yeah, and that wild card game is going to be out of control. Just think about like a Dodgers Padres wild card game. How exciting that will be!
I would love that.
Yeah.
And brought up a good point. Like the wild card teams are going to be dangerous in both AL and NL, because how many times have we seen a wild card team that just all of a sudden turns the tables? I mean, we've seen wild card winners in the World Series. We've seen it happen. It's not a rare occurrence by any means. Mm-hmm. You get that momentum, and all of a sudden, like it's an old baseball adage, like the best teams make it to the postseason. There's no Cinderellas. This isn't basketball. This is a 162 game season. Yeah. Everybody there deserves to be there, right? They don't stumble in on a hot streak. But once you get there, it's a total crapshoot. It's who has a hot week or two, right? That's
like injuries too, like happening. Who's feeling good or not. Like that, like I think on the rundown it says like, who's the best, who's the like scariest wild card team, and like I think the easy answer is the Yankees or the Dodgers, right? But the thing is, what if Kershaw's still hurt? What if Bellinger's little 4-homer burst here is actually just a little burst and he's actually still hurt too? I think that's where a lot of the chaos comes in that Britt's talking about. That sort of anything can happen in October is like, who's feeling good? Like who's physically feeling good? And,
right.
Some of those wild card teams, I think that rest can help. And so the the Giants are out here. Like Gabe Kapler is talking about a first place team out here, and he's fielding questions about sitting people and what he's going to do. And he says, from our research, like rest and sort of systematic rest is a really great way to keep people healthy. I mean, that's great and all in practice, but it doesn't matter if Belt turns the wrong way on that knee again in September and he's out,
Right.
It doesn't matter if Posey's finally wearing down after the year off, you know? So like, I think I think injuries are like the hugest amount of chaos, that and maybe like pitching, but
Yeah, and that's going to change a lot about how we feel about these potential wild card teams between now and the time that the playoffs actually begin. But I kind of look at the Jays as a team that they're just better than we all have realized all along. It's really clear. And healthy George Springer is an underrated player, even though we know he's a very good player. I think getting him healthy and in that lineup takes a very good lineup and makes it an excellent lineup. Like top to bottom, 1 to 9, is there a group of hitters in the American League other than the Astros when they're firing on all cylinders that you'd be more fearful of? I don't know if there is. I think that's the sort of offense the Jays have built, but it's not just that. They've done so many other things well. You know, Ryu is the signing from last year. He's good atop the rotation. Robbie Ray not walking guys. Really good. Alek Manoah continues to pitch really well. And then, as Eno mentioned, they added Barrios. That's a great playoff rotation. It's really good. Bullpen is solid. Offense is really good. Like, they have all the ingredients to be the kind of team that, yeah, they just squeaked in. They're the last team in, but they could be, any team can do it, but they could be very dangerous in October with the way they're built.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is they kind of like languished early on. I think getting Springer back was as much of like a mental boost almost for that team. Like it kind of like was a shot in the arm, right? They're playing how I thought maybe some people thought they could be at the top end here. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr., like, if it wasn't for Ohtani, he'd be running away with AL MVP. He doesn't get nearly as much press, and I understand why, because Shohei Ohtani is a generational talent. But you look at the Blue Jays, and what amazes me, guys, is they do get in. They're a dangerous team. They're built for the long haul here. They're not built to have like a one-and-done kind of season. They're going to be a really scary team, health permitting, for a long time. And the moves they made at this year's deadline show that they kind of know that. Like, they finally, for the first time in forever, the big knock on Toronto was they overvalue their prospects. They're not willing to part with guys. They parted with some top guys to get Barrios. They know the time is now. This could be the beginning of a very long window for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and I think they'll supplement with that sort of 1-year veteran strategy with on the pitching side next year to get the back end, another Robbie Ray type situation where they're looking for some values there to supplement it. But you know, my point about how things get shortened, I think the Blue Jays look way more dangerous in a short series than they do necessarily over the course of the season. Because over the course of the season, some of those issues in the bullpen, back end of the rotation can kind of get a little bit iffy. Like maybe you don't like Steven Matz, maybe Rafael Dolis is too wild, whatever you think, you know, all that stuff. It matters over the course of a season. But dude, think about the Blue Jays in a short season. You're only going to pitch 4 starters, right? If that. But if you're only going to pitch Manoah, Ryu, Ray, and who am I missing? Barrios, then you're pitching a really legitimate starter every night. And then think of like if Merriweather comes back. I know that seems like a crazy idea right now because he just seems like he doesn't work anymore. But like, what if this is why I'm talking about like health as a thing. What if Merriweather's healthy? Now you got Merriweather, Romano, Hand at the back end with Simber as the funk. I mean, that's like a legitimate, like you could pitch only those guys. What did the Nationals teach us? Like you just need 8 or 9 pitchers. Like, right? Like, like it doesn't matter if they're starters or relievers. You just need enough pitchers. And to me, that group, you could pitch nobody else in the postseason. Right? You could pitch those 9 pitchers, and that's it. And nobody else sees the mound unless you're losing or losing by a lot. I think that would be that. And then the Jays are like a 6 or 7 runs a night kind of team sometimes. So,
yeah.
Can you guys talk me into the A's? Because I do think they are more along the lines. They're more along the lines of a team that did its thing to be good enough to get to the playoffs. This is where they're tracking anyway. And we all understand, like, as you get to the postseason, you rely less on depth and you need top-end talent to win, or you just need good timing, right? You need guys to come through in the right situations. You need your ho-hum relievers to be unhittable, or you need a lot more balls in play to just find their way to the fielders. Like, all those things can go your way. Like, this is the old, you just got to get there and you got a shot. Like, that's why the teams play this way. Can you cherry pick 9 pitchers in Oakland that you feel good about? I mean, I know compared to the Jays, you don't like Manaea and Bassett and Montas as much as the first 3 in Toronto.
That's a good 3 at least.
And James,
right.
how do you feel about Caprillion? Do you think Caprillion is okay?
He'd be my I think I would try not to start him. I think I would try to have him as like a middle relief. So you've got 4 there.
It's been good. 14 starts this year, 3.22 ERA, 114 WHIP, 83 Ks, and 78 in the 3rd innings. That's really good.
Let's throw him in our 8. What's our magic number? 8 or 9. So let's just throw him in. We got 4.
Let's just say 8.
Yeah.
8. It takes 8 good pitchers to win.
We got 4 starters. We got Diekman, Trevino.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is why Puck is meaningful. AJ Puck just came up and he's sitting 99 from the left, and he dropped to the Randy Johnson arm slot. So like if you legitimately have like a Randy Johnson-esque reliever, that could be the thing that they need, because I'm struggling. I guess Romo is 4.
Romo,
right?
Chafin, Petit, like they've got some depth in the bullpen.
But those are like those.
This is where like the Trevor Rosenthal injury hurt them a lot, right? Like out for the season. Like you were kind of counting on that guy because he had such a resurging year with Kansas City to be that guy. And here's the issue with the teams like the A's is they don't have the depth often, like more often than not, right? They don't have the depth of some of these other teams.
Or also just the stars, like
that too. And like
Scherzer, like they couldn't go get Scherzer, they couldn't.
Right. Yes. And forever, like A's fans have complained because they get in the postseason and they lose. And that's the issue. The issue is like when you get to the postseason, like it's your best against the other team's best. And you're right, very often the A's front line just doesn't compare. They win by being pesky and by beating people down, and people looking up and saying like, "Oh, the A's have won 7 in a row." By the way, did you guys know the A's had won 7 in a row? I didn't.
I'm watching the games. They Jed Lowry's been a huge for them. They've had some timely hitting. If they do it, it's because one thing that Matt Olson jokes about the fact that him and Matt Chapman are never hot at the same time. So it just seems like that's kind of true. Like Olsen was in the tank, then Chapman, So let's say that for once, out of some sort of brilliant, luck, Olsen and Chapman are both hot at the same time. Now you got 2 force guys in the middle of the lineup. You got guys like Lowry and Marte. You've got now you're 4 or 5 deep in the lineup. That's pretty good. I would that 8. I would take the Blue Jays 8 or 9 over that A's group, and everyone's talking crap on the Blue Jays pitchers. So it's like I don't know that there is a playoff 8 or 9 that I would take the A's 8 or 9 pitchers over.
Okay, I can level with that, but then my natural follow-up question is the gap that wide, or is
maybe
it
not?
Really
how big would the gap be to if the Reds made it, it wouldn't be that big of a gap.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I would take the A's group over the Reds group.
I think I might. Yeah, but then the Reds might not make it either. Take the A's.
Yeah, you would take the A's group over the NL East winner, whoever that is, potentially, depending on who.
Potentially, if it's the Mets, probably not. I mean, if it's a healthy Mets squad, not. But
yes. But if it's the Phillies, they stumble.
Yeah, I would take it over the Phillies group. I might take it over the Braves, which is an interesting thing to say because I got killed for not putting the Braves in my top 5 rotations going into this season. I was just saying, I don't know. There's a lot of regression here that could be coming from Fried and Anderson and Soroka and the group. And it turned out to be pretty prescient. But as they are now, I think I might take the A's group. Yeah.
Here's the other team that's a probable wild card team. We haven't talked about them a lot in a while because when they're not doing Slam Diego things, somehow we kind of just like, we'll talk about them when they become more interesting.
And are they LOL Metsing?
Yeah, what's happening with the Padres right now? I mean, when you look at their best 8 or 9, bigger names, obviously Darvish is great. Joe Musgrove's having a great year. Blake Snell's not the Blake Snell that we're used to, so that needs to be accounted for. Paddock's on the IL right now. Ryan Weathers has been getting hit lately. Pomeranz is
never liked him.
Yeah,
Pomeranz is Pomeranz on the IL?
Pomeranz is currently on the IL again. Man, he has been on and off the IL. It feels like all season long. Forearm inflammation this time. So Paddock's out. Pomeranz is out. They could both be back in a couple of weeks. They added Daniel Hudson. They got Pagan. Melanson's been better than we all expected so far. How many
That's a
other
little
relievers
soft
do you
around
like there?
8 or 9. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
like, they're not quite the Padres team that we expected, because when they went out and made moves to get all that pitching, at least I expected a little more from Paddock than we've got so far, and I certainly expected a lot more from Blake Snell. And I don't know how much I
Morahan
trust him
going
right
down
now.
was bad for them because, you kind of thought Morahan, Gore, Weathers, maybe not all three of these guys are going to be good, but one will be. And right now, you're kind of looking Morahan hurt, Weathers, falling apart, and Gore, like they're not calling him up. So I guess Gore's not working out. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, Tatis has kind of been the heart and soul of that team too. So I think every time he's out or he's hurt, it leaves that gaping hole. And putting him in outfield, I mean, as a way to stay healthy, it's innovative. Will it work? I don't know. It just seems like that shoulder is going to continue to nag him kind of no matter where they put him, maybe to be a little less irritated. But wasn't it mostly what he was doing at the plate that was kind of bothering him, right? With the, letting go.
Oh yeah,
with
he
one
started.
arm.
Yeah, he started changing his. He's changed his follow through. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Manny Machado has had a really good year, kind of quietly, I feel like, which honestly, he doesn't really do much quietly, but I feel like the Tatis and everything that's gone on has kind of overshadowed his year and his season. He was a late add to the All-Star game, but if you look at his numbers, he kind of deserved to be there. So he's kind of been the ship that has kind of kept them afloat here a little bit. But every time I watch them, guys, like they lost to the you can't be losing to the Marlins at this juncture, right? Like they did the other day. Like you have to, in that NL West, beat the bad teams or you're not going to have any chance of getting to the top of that division. So you're right. They've been not as good. And some of the, I feel like initial early season excitement has kind of tapered off on them on a national level as well as a result.
After the trade deadline, AJ Preller said, I could have gotten an arm, but why would I do that if, we have 4 or 5 good starters here. Like if they don't pitch, we're not going in. I was
Shocked?
like,
Are you guys shocked? Yeah. Like I thought they were going to.
Crazy talk.
Yeah, I was just waiting after the Dodgers got Scherzer and Turner for Preller to go nuts that last day. And I was just really surprised.
Thought he would get Berrios or Sandy Alcantara or just have like some crazy trick up his sleeve.
Yeah, just weird.
Eventually you run out, I guess. Their upcoming schedule, they'll play the D-backs by the time most people hear this pod. 4-game series with Arizona, 3 on the road against the Rockies, a day off next Thursday, and then they've got the Phillies for 3 at home and the Dodgers for 3 at home before a couple against the Angels and a couple more against the D-backs. So not a terrible stretch of schedule, but the home
They
home
supposedly
series
have
next
a
week
good
are
schedule.
important.
They
Yeah.
supposedly have a good schedule. The one thing I will say is that I think that it's possible their player development is not as amazing. And that's kind of crazy to say when you produce somebody like Tatis, but I think Tatis is a scouting win. I think their scouting is among the best in the big leagues. AJ Preller is a magic scout. I mean, I think he's proved that. Like the old, like when I looked up how many major leaguers came from each team, it was the Rangers that had the second most in the big leagues. Why? A large part of that was AJ Preller, and I think that he's doing a really good job signing guys. And knowing for a large part who to trade away. However, if you have a really good player development thing, you have some pop-up guys. And I would say that like between Weathers, Gore, and Morahan, you're like sort of waiting for that pop-up guy, the depth starter that you're like, oh, hey, like Josiah Gray. Like you think about the Dodgers, right? They were like, oh, our depth is being tested. Well, I guess it's time to start Josiah Gray, and everyone's like, yes, finally, all the like scout people are like, yeah, finally get to see Josiah Gray, you're kind of, they don't like the Padres aren't really, don't have that ace in their back pocket, sort of deal.
They might have more useful bullpen arms than some of the other playoff teams. More guys you'd be willing to throw in the 6th or 7th than a lot of other teams where like their A bullpen might not be.
Tim Hill is underrated, though, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Tim Hill and Pierce Johnson, Craig Stammen's been fine. Like that group, that's a lot of useful arms. And if your starters are struggling,
tie game, 8th inning, wild card game.
That's kind of what they were doing. I mean, think about how they were just limping to the finish line in the postseason last year, right? Bullpenning the hell out of it. They might be doing something similar again this year, which is just so hard to believe after adding Darvish and Musgrove and Snell.
Snell.
Like that is so hard to believe that this team.
But you know what it
used that
takes
same recipe.
to add those guys is depth.
Right. And now we're saying they don't have quite enough depth at the big league, near big league level to fill in. Plus the injuries on top of those trades have put them in this really difficult spot. So I hope for their sake they are healthy. I hope we see them in the postseason again because it was fun. If it takes them falling kind of close to Cincinnati to just give us one more playoff race in the NL to make that exciting, I could live with that. But I'd still rather see the Padres in than the Reds. I think they are a clearly better team. Speaking of joy, though, let's talk about the Field of Dreams game. How do you feel about this? Is this something you guys are looking forward to? It hasn't been played yet, even though we're recording this on Thursday afternoon. We'll get to watch it tonight. Were you excited when you heard about it? Do you even like the movie? Like, I just find this whole thing to be like kind of random and fun, and like the kind of thing that baseball should do. But I don't really like the movie that much, so I wonder if that's tempering my enthusiasm for this game.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to say here.
I've seen it once. It is a little random, a little hokey. I think it's fun. I agree with you. Like, baseball's a long season. You want to play in a cornfield in August to break up the monotony? Like, go for it. I'm fine with that. You want to wear different jerseys? I'm fine with some of
that part. That part I'm fine with. I actually love the shots of the place. I love the what it looks like. I love the idea of like corn being in the background. I even like their innovation where they have a little bit of a fence, but you can see the corn through it. Like there's a lot of it that I like.
Yeah. So I think it's fine. People that are like kind of complaining about it are just going to complain no matter what. I feel like who cares? It's one game. If you don't like it, don't watch. That's how I feel. I'm going to watch because I think
it's just one game. It's not the whole series.
Yeah, it's just one game, right?
I thought it was only one game. Yeah, it's just Thursday.
Yeah, it's just one game.
I don't like that it's such a rich man's thing. Have you heard the prices on StubHub are starting at $1,400 per ticket?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Really?
I wish they found a way to bring the local community of Iowa in maybe a little bit more, or little.
They tried
leaguers.
to have some events around it. They had some little league games or like some kind of travel ball type games on it before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they'll use it, once the MLB is gone. But some parts of this don't hit me right. I'm not super excited. I guess I'll watch it. I don't know. And here's my real hot take that exposes me as a weirdo curmudgeon. I don't love sports movies.
Okay.
Really?
Here's
elaborate.
Here's what I love about sports. And I was thinking about this at the game the other night. I think we're all waiting at a game to see something we've never seen before. I think we're waiting to be surprised. So even if we're not waiting to see something we've never seen before, we are waiting to be surprised, right? We're waiting for like something that we can go home and tell our friends about. We're waiting for, there's no way that you want to know the ending.
That's fair. Like usually in a sports movie, this is probably why the arc fails you so many times. You know what's going to happen.
It's
usually.
so obvious. Like
9 out of 10 times you get the positive outcome at the end.
Do you think the
win
team
the big game?
Gonna lose at the end of
Well, here's my one caveat though. When it's a true story and you still know the team's gonna win, like Miracle is one of my favorite sports movies.
Yeah.
Like that's just cool. Like it's cool no matter how many times you watch it because the U.S. had no business beating Russia. So I love that movie because it was so cool. And same thing like Rudy, right? Another great movie because you're like, how the hell did this guy with no talent finally get to play in Notre Dame? So I like the true stories because even though I know how they end, I'm like inspired because I'm like, okay, this isn't like some Hollywood guru penning some ridiculous ending. This actually happened. Like people were chanting Rudy, the guy played, the Miracle. The U.S. did actually win that game. So I agree with you on most things. I think baseball movies in general are not well done.
There's so many really bad ones. Oh my god. Really at all? Trouble with the Curve. I just watched like 10 minutes and was like, please stop.
The best one is A League of Their Own, which again, based off true events. So I just feel like for me anyway, those are the most
ones. Here's a funny thing, given your recent reporting. one of my favorites is Sugar. Depressing as all hell. There's very little baseball in it. There's more about social issues and actually kind of about minor league housing crisis and stuff like that. Like, I mean, it's about this kid coming from like the Dominican Republic and trying to like, make sense of America and make it as a baseball player. So, and he has his host family, and I think it's actually super relevant to anybody who cares about baseball on all sorts of levels. But it's not very uplifting, and it's not like a one where they show a lot of baseball. But I've also just recently seen like Space Jam, both of them.
Oh, you've seen the old one and the new one now?
They're piss poor, dude. There's just awful movie making, just awful. I think even my kids were like, and my kids are starting to be a little bit critical. I'm happy about that. My kids recently saw a Pokemon movie. My older one was like, you know what? It was a little overdone.
Finding holes in the plot.
He was like, I liked Detective Pikachu a lot better than that one. And I was like, yeah, so did I. I don't know. I find them overdone. I find the acting, I find it cheesy. I found, a lot of the movies, baseball movies I've seen, I find super cheesy. So I like the ones that are like comedies or dramas that have enough going on else, outside of the baseball scenes. I just like the sports scenes. A lot of times they don't even do it right. They look terrible doing it. You know what I mean? Like I thought there were parts of Trouble with the Curve. I was like, did you ever play baseball before you started to play baseball on screen for this movie? Because it doesn't look like you know how to do it.
that is one of the things that's always weird about sports movies. And then you get random shots of professional games in movies. Sometimes those always look pretty weird because they're clearly like filmed differently in a lot of situations. Here's the thing, though, just kind of tying this all back to the Field of Dreams game and that movie and all this. The idea of growing the game by playing a game in Dyersville, freaking Iowa in August. That is a good idea, right? At its core, like if you think about it, like you connect the dots and say, let's go play a
growing
game in
the game
Iowa.
among rich old white people.
That's the problem.
What I was gonna say.
That's what I'm saying. It's the execution that is woefully inadequate, terrible, not even close, right? But the concept, the idea, let's play games where there aren't normally games.
Okay.
Like that's what I'm saying.
Like this sort of top level concept. Yes.
Like
this specific one seems very old and white.
No. I'm saying the idea of playing a major league game in a place where you black out like 6 to 8 major league teams. I think it's at least 6, right?
They have a sign on the way in where they're like, "Please stop blacking out the games, Manfred." You're like, "Whew, that's not great optics."
Yeah, I mean, I tweeted like if they want to grow the game, just get rid of blackouts, and it got like 15,000 likes. It's easily going to be the best tweet I've ever tweeted because everyone
run
feels
for
the
office
same
on
way.
that. Yeah,
I know. Everyone feels the same way. Like the best way to grow the game is to involve the people like me who have cut the cord and allow them to watch every team.
How about this? How about this even? The A's had a night where tickets were free.
What?
that works.
Really?
That gets some people in the door.
$0. $0 to go see an A's game.
That's
Sold
amazing.
out. Don't you think that grows the game?
Yeah, because
Yes.
people who wouldn't ordinarily spend the money to go or don't have the means
What grows
to
the
go
game
are
more?
going to go and watch it, and they're going to like it.
$1,400 ticket game,
Right?
Or the $0 ticket game?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a good point. And you're right, Derek. Like you want to take all these states that don't have baseball and play in them. Like I'm all for it. Doesn't even have to be tied to a movie. Take these states in these areas where you really have no fans or it's tougher to retain those fans and have games. But like said, make them free. Do giveaways, like hit the school age children. There should be sections of little leaguers in Iowa. That's who you want to hit. The people who, when they leave Dyersville, Iowa, by the grace of God, and go on with their life, they're baseball fans, right? You don't want the guys who are closer to death than they are to their like baseball ticket buying season.
Maybe they're doing some of that. I don't know, and maybe in like maybe they have to pay for it. Like they definitely spend a lot on this thing. So like maybe in year 2 or 3 they'll have more sort of community outreach, and they are allowing the community to like play catch on but it's the old field. I don't know. Like no one's allowed on the MLB field right now because it's all hush hush before the game starts. So I don't know, man. It's cool. It's all right.
I just think we've seen plenty of examples from the game. from the
Yay,
league.
joy!
No,
This was supposed to be the episode of
The
joy.
joy in baseball.
that's why we started
You
there.
took a big old poop on it.
Yeah, thanks.
One
thanks
star.
Thanks for the
We're
tune.
not
Thanks for
listening again.
Thanks for killing the podcast reviews. If you are still enjoying this podcast, please take a moment to leave us a nice rating and review. We got to push back on the haters of the show who don't like the negativity here. I thought the story that Britt wrote about Zach Britton's Field of Dreams cleats was really cool. I think the cleats themselves are really awesome. And then I got a little furious because I thought, like, oh, so now we have to turn this into a charity. We have to use charity from this game to make sure that minor league players have enough money to pay bills for housing and food. Like the absurdity of that is just it will never cease to make me angry, and I continually feel powerless to actually do anything about it, which I think is what makes it worse.
Yeah, it's just the system is broken, right? And I think, I wrote a few weeks ago, I talked to 30 minor league players, and I think it's important to realize that outside of the Houston Astros, which are providing furnished apartments for all their players at all the different levels, outside of them, like no other team is really doing anything but the bare minimum, which is essentially nothing to help their minor leaguers. And I guess that, people's counter argument all the time is, well, they're minor league baseball players, they're chasing the dream, they're making minimum wage.
Different
And
sport.
yeah,
Bigger
and
different
I have
job.
I have a couple points to that maybe people don't realize. They're not making minimum wage. When you do it out hourly, many of them are making below minimum wage. If you're a minimum wage worker, no one's asking you to pick up and move to another city, not in your control, and then secure housing for 5 months.
And train on your own. You don't have to train to do a minimum wage job on your own. You're not spending your own time on it.
Yeah,
nobody is telling you that. It's insane.
There are some very old things we've talked about with player development, and the minor league system in general is one of them that just don't make sense at all. And the carve-outs that enable this to be possible, brought to you by Congress, are obnoxious because what the Astros did, Britt, what they're doing, paying for the housing for their minor leaguers, that is a thing that every single team could easily do. And it would not hurt them. And it wouldn't make tickets cost $180 each for every single person in every single stadium at the big league level throughout this country. It wouldn't turn it into that at all. It's doable. And the thing I cannot understand, how can you as a team trying to develop players not realize that to maximize the value, again, this is even removing the fact that these are people and you want to take care of people because they're people. How do you not realize that someone who is not worried about housing, someone who sleeps comfortably and eats well, is going to perform better on the job you're paying them to do? How is it not even just that spurs teams to do the right thing? I think that might be a big part of why the Astros do it. The Astros are all about player development and performance. Weird, huh? The weirdest thing of all, and you brought this up before and it was in the story, they kind of keep that on the down low because it's a competitive advantage for them. Isn't that silly? I mean, this is common sense stuff that every organization should want to do. And we've got a lot of Twitter accounts that keep relaying stories like this too. I mean, the story you wrote was fantastic. It all comes to light because of people finally being more comfortable in talking about this thing it's been happening forever. This is not new. This has been minor league baseball for probably since the beginning of time, but at least forever.
There is something a little bit new. Britt, in your reporting, have you heard anything about host family programs being restarted or something? I mean, that's some part of this, right? That stopped during COVID.
Yes.
And that used to be kind of a stopgap for a lot of people that they would live with a local family.
That's part of it. But what's unfortunate about the host families is sometimes host families charge players, which I didn't realize.
I did not.
I talked to multiple guys who paid to stay in a host family's house.
Whoa.
And it's often not like, hey, here's my spare bedroom, Derek. Come stay here. This is your bedroom and bathroom. It's families who have 10 guys and they're all sleeping next to each other in basements. So there's great host families and there's not great host families, right? So, and here's the crazy thing.
I don't know why I never thought of that. Because I've met host family parents that seem like the nicest people in the world, and like, you know, they gave their kid went away to college, and they gave their kids, like, you know, bedroom to the host, and the kid and the players, like, I love this host family, but of course there are bad host families.
Yeah, there's good and bad. And so, but why as a $1 billion team are you entrusting these random people again with lodging your players? And you mentioned San Diego, and I'm glad you did, you know, because they seem to be some of the worst offenders at the double and triple A level, which is crazy because I had a guy who said, listen, multiple top 30 prospects are sleeping on floors.
Those are people you'd expect to come up and help your team soon.
Yes, and they're in San Antonio and they're in El Paso, and these are expensive. The problem too that I mentioned in my reporting was, I mean, you guys know what the real estate market is like right now. I'm trying to buy a house. Derek, you just moved. You know, you live in one of the most expensive places in the country. Now, what's happening, though, is these mid-market cities are getting expensive. Your Columbuses, your Louisville, your Indianapolis, your Nashville, San Antonio, because people have left the big cities, right? So the rental rates are through the roof in a lot of these places. And they are these small cities that don't house a big league team, but they house a minor league team. So finding rent in these places is absurd. And also the restructuring that was happening this winter when they got rid of 40 teams, they moved Class A in the Cal League to California. So you're talking about expensive. These guys are making like $500 a week, and they are supposed to live in Southern California, Northern California. They're supposed to live in these ridiculous
Lake
areas.
Elsinore, dude. Lake Elsinore is in the middle of Orange County.
Yes, and a player pointed out to me, MLB kind of said, oh, we're going to travel less. It's going to be better for everyone. Well, what they didn't point out was the players pay for their home housing. So traveling less, yes, like Stockton, every time they go to Lake Elsinore or Rancho Cucamonga, those are home games. Those are commuter games. They get on the bus, they drive there, they come back. So players have to pay for more home housing. Derek's face is hilarious if you're watching this. He's like totally flabbergasted. So it's this huge mess, and it's always been a mess, but it's even worse now because of the rental costs, the host families, and this reduced travel nonsense. So
now we're doing cleat things, and Dallas Braden around here, bless his heart, is doing like Chipotle giveaways and, like, you know, raising money to give it minor leaguers Chipotle cards, which is like, I mean, that place gives me the poops. I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, I would take it if it was free, but like.
Well, did you see his tweet? He used to chug NyQuil because he was so hungry.
Oh, that was the worst. He thought he used to chug NyQuil to go to sleep because sleeping was free.
Yeah. That's bleak. It's so bleak. Also, Stockton and Rancho, those are not, like, I was making a face because I was thinking about California's geography. I don't have a map of California on my wall yet. I'm going to get one so I learn where places are. Those are not close. Those are not close at all. Rancho is like on the drive from LA to Vegas. It's kind of part of the desert, I think, right? Like high desert and Rancho are just kind of out there, way out there. Stockton's up east of Oakland. Like those are not close at all.
Horrid. That's like a 4-hour drive home.
Yeah.
5 hours.
Computer games.
If it's like Elsinore, it might be 7 hours home. Ugh. What? After the game? What?
Yeah.
Because you sleep on the bus?
Just to save money, because then the team would have to put them up on the road, but at home, the players are responsible. So the players mostly pay per night in hotels, and they pack up all their stuff and live out of their cars when the team's on the road. So then they come home, and there's been car break-ins everywhere in some of these cities because, of course, you know, you walk by a parking lot and everyone's lives are stuffed into their cars and they're gone for weeks. It's just a really sad. Again, you could furnish these apartments, you could help these players for half the year, and you can Airbnb it or use it for other purposes the rest of the season.
And I know
they just don't want to.
And I know actually some people are trying to do something about this. David Casillas is trying to do something about this where you could do kind of like dormitory type housing for people, right? Like they're not expecting you to give them like a furnished apartment, necessarily. Like, and you could do this like reasonably cheaply, even in some of these bigger cities, if you went to like some of the kind of business park areas, right? let's say you just went to the business park area and you took one of those big business park buildings and you split it up into little 10 by 10s with, with a bathroom for every 4 or something. Like, that doesn't sound amazing to people listening, but that would be better than what's happening.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't cost millions and millions of dollars for a team. It would be like maybe a couple $100,000 to like renovate the way where I'm thinking. Like, I remember my friends in New York converted a factory in Bushwick into lofts, right? And they didn't have millions of dollars. They just like put up some stucco and put in a toilet. I mean, none of it was really to code. And there's, if you want to look it up, there's some really cool thing, a really cool piece about the McKibben lofts in Bushwick. My friends were involved in that. I spent a lot of time there. Super wild. But anyway, they didn't do it with lots of money. They did it with a little bit of stucco and some toilets. So I think it's possible that a major league team could do better than the McKibben lofts in Bushwick.
So on that note, I think we should get to one more happy thing. I was going to ask you guys, as people who've been listening to this pod throughout the season know, Topps has been a presenting sponsor of our show back to the spring, and they've had that Project 7 that we've been talking about, where they release 3 new cards every day. Just thought this would be a good time to stop and say, hey, like, have you seen some of these designs over the course of this year? What have you liked the most to this point? I actually bought one a while back. I bought a Josh Gibson card because A, Josh Gibson is amazing, and B, they really don't make a lot of Josh Gibson baseball cards. It just seemed like a very cool thing to have in a small collection. But I'm seeing a ton of Tatis, of course. I feel like I mentioned Tatis's name in like all of those reads, and a lot of them are really cool designs. A lot of stuff from the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. And I think my favorite era so far has been like the late 70s and the very early 80s designs. I think some of those, like the Chris Bryant Giants one that's up right now, is probably my favorite current design. There's a Vlad Jr. one that's pretty similar, I think, from the same year too. So what have you guys seen in Project 70 that's really caught your eye so far?
Some of them are a little nuts. The one that I really like is the Doc Ellis by Matt Taylor. I just really love the design. I love the idea behind it, that he was on acid for that game. So like they really, there's like a story behind the card, and I think they kind of nailed that kind of trippy art. But then also, like, there's so much going on in some of these. I like some of the kind of simpler ones. So the other one I really liked was Lauren Taylor's Ronald Acuna. And just to describe it real quick, it's just Acuna in profile celebrating, and he's in black and white, but I love his yellow arm guards, so like he's got his yellow flare on, and he's in black and white. And then if you look a little closer, you can see him doing a bat flip kind of in his jersey. Like it's like a little detail. I like that better than some of the other ones that have just like a ton of crap going on where I can't really focus on any one thing. So yeah, the Lauren, those two are my favorite.
Yeah, there is a lot going on. The Ozzie Smith ones are cool, I think, just because Ozzie Smith to me is cool. I like the one from 1982, Ozzie Smith by the Shoe Surgeon. It's got Ozzie Smith obviously front and center, but it's got the Wizard of Oz and a little bit of that theme going on. The Yellow Brick Road, some of the stuff from the old movie poster combined with him, I think is a really cool look. Did you guys see as well that Jesse Sanchez got a Topps card? MLB.com reporter, he got his own. Jesse Sanchez, if you don't know him, super nice guy. I've known him for 15 years now. He crushes the international signings, the International League, all that stuff going on. He actually got a Topps card. I'm going to try and see if I can secure one and get Jesse to sign it for me, because I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of on my bucket list some days.
Oh my God.
Have a baseball card that's mine. Like,
who is it? Who is that other outfit that does cards of people around baseball?
Oh yeah, Allen and Ginter does.
Allen and Ginter
does people around the game. Well, there was I think Baseball Britt had one made of him, and maybe Pitching Ninja had a baseball card recently.
Wow.
Yeah, I want one of those too. Yeah,
that'd
be sweet.
I got like a
Rates and Barrels card.
I got a tidbit on the back of a baseball card because I think Michael Salfino writes some of the blurbs on the back of Topps cards. I think he mentioned my stuff metric with regards to like Zach Gallen on the back of a Zach Gallen card. I was already pretty juiced by that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
These, I do want a card. Anybody who's collected cards would would love to have one of themselves.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm going to add that to my bucket list as well, Britt. It'd be very cool. A Rates and Barrels card, a DVR card, anything really. I'd be honored to have something like that made. But yeah, check out Project 70 if you haven't, because the designs are very different, very unique. It's cool to see players that you're watching now in the designs from the era maybe you grew up collecting. Like a lot of the late 80s and early 90s stuff is what I had.
I just saw the Tatis from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
A bunch of those are really cool. They had let's see, the Jacob Rochester one. I mean, they've made a lot of cool Tatis cards. If you're a Tatis fan right this year and you've been buying all the Tatis cards on Project 70, you've built quite the collection over the course of this year. But
whoa, look at that Willie Mays by Pose. Wow, he's got a half naked Willie Mays where he's holding the bat right where in his crotch. Hello.
Yeah, so the Jazz Chisholm is a little too much because I feel like Jazz Chisholm already is his big personality.
Yeah.
Some of them do have a lot going on, but there are some really cool ones.
Yeah.
And you could tell, I mean, the backgrounds of the different artists are all over the place. So you get a set that's just very unique. Lots of designs that you never could have even imagined on your own. And we had Alex Pardee on the Athletic Fantasy Baseball podcast earlier this season. A lot of the monster designs, like there's one of Tatis where he's turned into a monster.
Yeah.
Brian Hayes as a spider. Like that's his style of art. So those are really cool if you're into comic book art or anything like that.
Yeah, I just noticed that one. It's like some sort of tree monster or something. Rasta tree monster. Oh no, he looks like the Predator.
Mm-hmm.
That's who he is. Tatis as the Predator. Yes, that's awesome, actually. That's my new favorite.
So you can check out the archives. They're not all available because they're only available for 70 hours. The current ones are available at Topps.com. You can check those out anytime. They're only available for 70 hours before they go away for good. Before we go away for the weekend, I want to let you know you can subscribe to The Athletic for just $3.99 a month at theathletic.com/rates and barrels. You can read the stories that Britt wrote that we were talking about. You can read all the playoff-related coverage as the stretch run continues. If you're into fantasy football, we're going to have that covered as well on Twitter. She's at Britt_Giroli. He is at Enoceris. I assure you, all of us love baseball. If you love this podcast, take a month, leave a nice rating and review. Don't let the haters win. Hit the like button if you're watching us on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. That's going to wrap things up for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We are back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.